Let me know if this sounds like you. You have a dream, you have some project you want to start, maybe it's a business, some creative thing, some far off long-term goal. Maybe it's losing weight, something, anything. And you get started, feels good, you're all pumped up, and then you hit a little bit of adversity. It gets a little bit difficult, a little bit strenuous. The results aren't coming in the way that you want, and you quit. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to handle adversity. I'm going to give you a couple key tips and takeaways that you can take from this video and apply them into your real life to help you deal with adversity, overcome some of those obstacles so that you can accomplish your goals. These are tips that I personally use to overcome some of the adverse situations in my life, situations where I was broke, where I had no money, where I'd been arrested, or I dropped out of college and I didn't know what to do. Pretty adverse situation. And I figured out how to turn that around, find my passion, start writing, build a career, work for myself, do what I love, all of that good stuff. Came through the process of learning how to handle adversity. So I'm going to walk you through some of those tips that I used in my life so that you can use them in yours. But before we get to that, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that little notification bell so you get brand new videos the moment that they come out. This is very important because I'm going to continue to share content that is going to help you on this journey over a very long period of time. One thing that's really useful for me is reframing the context of what it is that I'm actually doing. So when you have some sort of project or dream or whatever that you're trying to build, you feel overwhelmed, and kind of the level of adversity that you think you're experiencing isn't really as bad as you think it is. So let's take what I do, for example, or anything where you're trying to build, let's say, an online business. A lot of people feel like they face a ton of adversity when they're doing this. You have to figure out how to find people who like your stuff. You have to put together the tech. There's just obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and you kind of think about all of those obstacles up front, and it paralyzes you, so you end up doing nothing. Try changing the context of what you're doing. Are you really going through some massive period of adversity, or do you just need to calm down, be a little bit patient, understand the power of long-term strategies? I've talked about this over and over and over again. On any sort of life path trajectory, the beginning part is always fraught with the highest level of adversity, frustration, difficulty, and obstacles. But if you're able to break through that barrier, whether that takes you 6 months or a year or 2 years, it's going to be pretty much smooth sailing after that. You just have to realize it's just a series of steps. Starting a business is a series of steps. You learn how to find what people want, and then you create something for them, and then you learn how to market it and sell it. These are kind of repeatable steps that you could pick up in a book, and any one of these books behind me on a bookshelf could tell you about that. But you over amplify it in your mind. You create all this additional emotional context around it that doesn't need to be there, and even me telling you that right now doesn't necessarily help, because you know that logically, but you need to learn how to embrace that at kind of a deep emotional level to be able to actually follow through with those steps. So how do you actually do that? For me, one thing that was helpful was understanding that once I achieved a certain hurdle or got over a certain hurdle, learned a certain kind of micro skill within that skill, I'd have it and it would be mine forever. So when I had no skills, everything was really hard to come by. But once I gained a little skill, I kind of stored that and locked it away and said, okay, that's mine. I can keep that forever. And you continue to kind of compound and play these little iterated games over time, and it becomes easier. But most people equate the difficulty of the beginning of whatever it is that they're trying to do with the entire path, thinking it's going to be equally as hard, throughout the whole process, when it's not. All the difficulty is in the beginning, and then it gets better as you move on. You're just learning nuances of what it is that you're trying to do. So change the context of what you're doing And in terms of looking at adversity, a lot of people in the self-improvement space, they equate adversity to like following through with goals. Like this, what I'm doing doesn't seem tough to me. You know what seems tough to me? Working in a coal mine. That seems tough. That seems like you have to overcome some adversity. Fighting for apartheid in South Africa. That's overcoming adversity. Being locked up in jail for something you didn't do and having to have the mental fortitude to like fight your case and get out. That's adversity. Figuring out how to start a business, not really adversity. You will face adversity, but it's not this life or death crazy thing. There's a lot more psychologically difficult situations to deal with than trying to just build out a dream from scratch. So keep that in mind. Keep the context of what you're going through and break it down to its components so that you can actually follow through. The second thing you can do is learn how to wipe your slate clean over and over and over again. Life, once you start to take sort of a gamified approach to life where you really do start to look at life as a game that you're trying to play and win, you just give yourself more opportunities. For you gamers out there, it's like when you get to respawn, like, you're playing Call of Duty, you get killed, then you just get to pop up again and you get to play again. And that's how goals work. All you have to do is get things right once. There's this quote from Mark Cuban, and he says, the best thing about business is you only have to be right once to be successful. And, a big reason why people fail to kind of adhere to this kind of knowledge is the fact that you've been trained that, failure is a bad thing. You've been trained that if you get a 50% on a test, that you're a failure. But if you get 50% of your decisions right in business and getting your life together, those are insanely good results. You only have to be right really like 10% of the time. So give yourself the opportunity to restart. I tried a lot of different things before I got kind of the writing and video and things like that to work. I sold knives door to door, for Cutco. Some of you probably know that. I was in all those little marketing pyramid schemes. I tried different jobs and I got fired. I tried to get motivated. I had a semester in school where I got like damn near straight A's, and then the next semester I got a 0.0 GPA. Like my motivation has came in ebbs and flows, and I've had stops and starts until I found something that clicked for me, which is why I always tell people to focus on finding something that they're potentially good at, and that's still going to have an element of fear to get over, a barrier to get over, but at least it gives you kind of a better head start, and keep swinging away. I use this clean slate technique, not just in the macro, but in the micro. Some days, work just will not go the way that I want it to. I will only, I'll plan to get like 8 hours worth of work done. I'll only get 2 hours of work done, and then I'll spend the next 3 hours kind of beating myself up about not getting the work done, and then the whole day will kind of be a sham, and I'll be in a bad mood, But then the next day I wake up, and yesterday is done. You got to adopt that attitude. It's kind of like in the NFL, the really good quarterbacks are the ones who will go and throw a touchdown the next drive after they throw an interception. And kind of the bad quarterbacks, or kind of the quarterbacks that get held back, is once they throw that first interception, it's in their heads the rest of the game. And they're just thinking about not screwing up. They're wanting to avoid that mistake again. You can't live your life that way if you want to be successful. You have to create this deep understanding that the past does not predict the future at all. Your past doesn't predict your future. So don't count your failures, the times where you bumped up against the face of adversity and you kind of buckled and chickened out. Doesn't mean you can't do it again and be successful. There's people who try to lose weight 9 times, and the 10th time they figured it out. I think it was like Colonel Sanders. He started like 59,000 businesses before he got KFC to work. There's that quote from Thomas Edison. He says, if I try something 10,000 times and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean I failed. It just means I got a little bit closer to the truth each time, which kind of leads me to my next point. The final point I can give you, kind of a bridge, a corollary to the idea of life being kind of a game. You want to run an experimental, have an experimental attitude about the way that you're living your life, right? So if a scientist is trying to find a cure or run an experiment and they don't get the results they want, they don't say, oh, I'm a failure, I'm a terrible scientist, I'm never going to find the discovery. They say, no, I formed a hypothesis, I ran the experiment, and the results did not match what I had predicted they would match. So I'm going to take another avenue, another alternative, right? So that's how you build a successful life. You figure out what might work, you form a hypothesis around it, and then if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. It says nothing about you. It says nothing about your character. It says nothing about your intelligence. It just didn't work. You can't know if something's going to work before you try it. So, blaming yourself and calling yourself a failure just because things don't work out your way is a terrible way to deal with adversity, yet that's exactly what most people do. And, a key distinction to make is you have to learn to separate your identity from your behavior, right? So your behavior might have been that you tried and failed, but you don't have to make it into your identity that you're a failure. A lot of people struggle overcoming obstacles, and then they create a label for themselves that they are a person incapable of overcoming obstacles. That's something I dealt with. I was always someone who started things but never finished them. I was always a person that had potential but never followed through, that always came up short. When it came time to actually having some modicum of discipline where I couldn't just coast off of my talents, I would always quit. And that was a recurring theme in my life from the time I was born, basically, until the time I was in my mid to late 20s. But in this recent 5-year time span, I have built discipline. I have completed things. I've written books, created online courses and programs, given talks and speeches in front of thousands of people. I've done a lot of things that would contradict this former self who was always a failure. So I didn't hold on to that identity. I kind of always looked at things as an experiment, and I kept trying things. And that's kind of the good and bad thing maybe about my personality. It's kind of why I stay out of casinos, because I'm willing to keep pulling that slot over and over and over again, because I always think I'm going to hit the jackpot next time it comes along, right? So take that attitude. Stop taking life. Everyone takes life way too darn seriously. It's like your mistakes, don't treat your mistakes like this life or death proposition. My goodness, no wonder you're so anxious and neurotic all the time. You're like placing way too much weight on all of this. The way that I actually feel as if I succeed in life, I wrote an article about it, is I actually take my life a lot less seriously than other people, which means I can apply serious levels of work ethic to what I'm doing. I don't take everything as life or death, like that I need to have this perfect career and resume or else I'm a failure. It's like, no, I'm just playing the game of life. And it's fun to play the game of life. And if things don't go my way, it doesn't feel good. It still hurts, but I keep going. The first book I wrote didn't sell a bunch of copies. I've created products that have made 0 sales. I've been rejected, submitting my articles and trying to get published on publications. I felt frustrated. I created 3 or 4 blogs that all failed before kind of my 4th one actually took off. But I just kept swinging, kept playing the game. You get unlimited chances as long as you're still alive. And I know that sounds a little bit corny, but it's true. Adopt that experimental mind frame. You're kind of a mad scientist. Like, you're like Dexter in his laboratory, just creating plans, trying to get them to work, trying to get them to pop. And, if you live long enough and you keep trying and you develop kind of a slightly above average level of discipline, usually things will work. Okay, in the description below, you're going to see some cool, amazing, dope resources. One of them being my flagship book, Real Help, An Honest Guide to Self-Improvement. Go in the description and check that out. Even if you are not the person who loves to read written content, you could grab it in audio book to get those lessons downloaded into your brain. You're also going to see a checklist that's going to teach you how to develop profitable skills. Just click the link below, enter your email, and you'll get that free checklist and be well on your way to finding your life purpose. Lastly, make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Smash that thumbs up button if you liked the video. Leave a comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell, because it is going to help you get content that you need the minute that it comes out. Make sure to check out some of the other videos that are popping up before your very eyes right now, and I will see you on the next video.